It is Thursday here on the Locked On Network, and you know what that means. It is time for another crossover as the Chargers head east to play the 1-4 Dolphins in Week 6.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Network. I am Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. He is David Drogmeyer of Locked On Chargers, and we are excited to link up and help you get ready for this Week 6 matchup between the Chargers and the Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. As always, we want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers here on the Locked On Network. And it is all of your teams every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. David, it's good to see you. It's been a couple of years since we had a chance to do this. How's the season treating you? How's life treating you here as we're about a third of the way through 2025 season already?
It's unbelievable how quickly time has flown by. I'm doing exceptionally well. I just got back from a vacation in San Diego. I got to spend some really good quality time with my family, which I really desperately needed. Unfortunately, I was in attendance for the walloping that the Chargers received at the hands of the Washington Commanders, so that was not particularly fun. But with that being said, the sky is not falling, although it does seem that way around Chargers land with them dropping 2 in a row. But besides that, it's great. How are you, man? It's been a long time. It's a beautiful thing that we both get to sit here after 7 or 8 years and still be able to represent the teams that we still cover.
Yeah, it's really cool to be a part of this ecosystem for as long as I have and see so many of the other faces that are thriving. And that's what I like about the Thursdays in season, right? Is you get a chance to catch up with all your buddies and talk a little football, which is what we're going to do here as the Chargers come to town. So I want to give you the floor. I'd be a horrible host as the home team if I didn't give you a chance to tell everybody the biggest story going into this week, whether that's the offense the last couple of weeks with the injuries on the offensive line and the running game, whether that's whatever Jim Harbaugh's latest soundbite is, whether that's Jesse Minter's defense getting after people. What's the main buzz right now for the Chargers?
I think the biggest storyline around the Chargers is this looks like a very un-Jim Harbaugh-like football team. I think when you look at Jim Harbaugh and the way he coaches football, like there are some calling cards that you attribute to how he coaches. Physical, smart, well-disciplined football teams that punch you in the mouth, that play good defense, that limit the turnovers, that are clean operationally on offense, and they've been anything but any of those things, which is why they're in the middle of a 2-game skid, and the Chargers better make sure that they get things tightened up, or else this will be the first time in the Jim Harbaugh era that the Chargers will have dropped 3 games in a row. So I think right now, this week is all about making sure that you correct the mistakes and you clean up the play so that they don't fall into this opportunity of losing that 3rd game in a row.
Yeah, well, if you're going to talk about mistakes, we could talk about where the Dolphins are at these days, where the team is averaging over 5.5 yards per carry allowed defensively. They are averaging over 7 yards, net yards per attempt. That ranks 29th and 31st in yards per carry. So they have really struggled defensively. Now they've gotten 5 turnovers the last 2 weeks. They got their first interception of the season and jumped out to a 17-0 lead on the road against Carolina, only to have the bottom drop out. And you had a couple of the players after the game, and Mike McDaniel after the game said, we didn't feel like we necessarily got complacent, but Bradley Chubb, one of the team captains, said, I don't want to speak for everybody, felt like we took our foot off the gas a little bit. So that's the kind of stuff where the roster's in the bit of a youth movement. The defense is in a full-on transition. The secondary is a mess. It's just a very unpredictable team to get a feel for, where there's talent that exists. When you look at the roster on paper, you see talent. And I think it's the application of that talent and getting everything to kind of click into place has been the first month of the season. That's the big story for them is, who are you? How do you need to play with what you have at your disposal, with the talent that you do have? how do you maximize that and lean on that and get the rest of the ship steady? And I think with those still being relative low confidence as far as what the answers of those are, I think that's where you look at a Chargers team coming in that's maybe trying to uh, shake out their own issues. And I would put almost any team in the league right now up against Miami and say, hey, I'd have a better level of confidence that they're going to sort their issues out versus Miami getting everything that they have sorted out, just because of all the things that have gone awry for them thus far this season.
So I got a question as far as the confidence in Mike McDaniel himself, as far as this football team. Would you say that he's on the hot seat right now?
I'd say he's absolutely on the hot seat. And I think the part about this game in particular, where Jeremy Fowler went on Rich Eisen's show on Wednesday and said we consider it moderately, he's on a moderately hot seat. But Jim Harbaugh was always Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner. He's a Michigan guy. He's like, that's always kind of been like his white whale. You go back to when he was at Stanford in the early 2010s, they had Tony Sperano under contract as the head coach of the team. Ross got on a helicopter and like flew to California to talk to Harbaugh about the head coaching job. And he like never fired the coach. So that gets public. He's got to give Tony Sperano a 2-year contract extension. And like it led to a lot of strife in-house.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Michigan and he creates a national championship program there. And Ross had interest, but said, I'm not going to be the guy that hires Jim Harbaugh away from the University of Michigan because of Ross's ties to Michigan. So like if this game comes out ugly, when you have the Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa layer to this, you have the Jim Harbaugh, Stephen Ross connection layer to this. I hope this doesn't get ugly, because if it does, like, you don't know how Stephen Ross is going to go to bed on Sunday night or how he's going to wake up on Monday morning if it doesn't sit right with him. So I absolutely think like the results have to start showing on the field. You knew coming into this season, the roster was kind of set up in a way where we're probably going to take some lumps early, but 1-4. And now you really got to start to show some improvement, and you got to show that this team is going to get better and the young players are going to start to play better, or else this fan base is already pretty rickety as far as where they're at with Mike McDaniel. And I could certainly see that snowballing.
Yeah. And I think for the Chargers, they put themselves in a really good position to start the season. It's very, very rare that you have 3 division opponents back to back to back. And I think it's even more rare that you're able to defeat all 3 of those opponents to start the season. And so I think right now, winning those first 3 games and kind of giving yourself almost an extra game lead, no matter who you're playing against in the AFC West, you don't want to just wash away all that goodwill and that good momentum that you were able to accumulate by getting those wins, because you look at it and the Broncos are 1 win behind them and they're, right there. So obviously the Chargers are just ahead just because they have the head-to-head matchup advantage, but the Chargers can't afford to drop another game, especially against a team that I think if we look at it, they're probably heading in opposite directions as far as their trajectories are concerned, but that can change any given Sunday. And so the Chargers absolutely have to show up and be a much more prepared football team, a much more Jim Harbaugh-like disciplined, hard-nosed, physical football team, which we have not seen for the last couple of weeks. And yes, the Chargers have been ravaged by major injuries, but guess what? So is every team in the NFL. So there's no excuses that can be made here. You have to be able to make the moves and provide quality depth, which means when guys are asked to play, that they can provide a at least baseline level of quality of play. And unfortunately, so far, the Chargers have not been able to do that.
Well, we will set the stage for who is expected to play in this game and what those matchups look like on the other side of the break. So make sure you guys all stick with us. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride and has more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, Athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You could feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you could drive with confidence through almost any season, and especially through football season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so David, I don't know if you want to start Chargers offensive line. We could start Dolphins secondary. Like, what picked over room do you want to put the spotlight on first here?
Yeah, I think for me, it has to be the offensive line for the Chargers. And, as I talked about, the injuries have really hit this unit in particular. Before the season even started, they lost their star left tackle, Rashawn Slater, to a torn meniscus, which was a catastrophe in itself. And then their other tackle, who was fantastic, by the way, a guy that they took with the 5th overall pick, just last season with Joe Alt, he went down with a sprained ankle. And so they've had to have a couple of backups try to provide, quality play, and it has been an absolute nightmare. So going up against the Miami Dolphins, which I would say the strength of their defense is their pass rush, going up against Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Jordan Brooks and Chop Robinson, all guys that, can get after the quarterback, provide some pressure. That's a scary situation for the Chargers offensive line that's very beat up and just has not been able to play well. Justin Herbert has had immediate pressure in his face pretty much the last 3 games in a row. Ever since Joe Alt went down with the injury, they have not been able to provide any semblance of quality play. And going into this game, that's a scary proposition and something they absolutely have to get fixed or corrected to at some point to be able to allow Justin to throw the ball, because he has been getting beaten up the last few games.
Yeah, and I think for Miami, their ability to attack that is really going to be predicated on how they choose to play on the back end. Where some teams it's, well, we set our front and then everything fits behind that, or we set our shell and then we can work our front off of that. For Miami, they've kind of settled into who the 2 outside corners are, with Rasul Douglas and Jack Jones. And both guys had shown some progressive growth throughout the first month of the season, and neither one of them played particularly well against Carolina. So there was a setback in that regard that kind of helped fuel the comeback that the Panthers had against them. But the nickel spot for them, when I look at the Chargers and the emergence of Quentin Johnston and the way that he's turned into a really nice player, and the way that Keenan Allen's so reliable still, and really haven't seen the best of Ladd McConkey yet either. Like there's a math problem there where you got to be able to cover 3 guys. And the nickel, it was Kader Kohu, and then he went down the first week of training camp. Mike Hilton was brought in. He didn't make the team for one reason or another, because they liked 5th-round draft choice Jason Marshall, who was an outside corner at Florida that they convert to nickel. I'm about halfway through this list, so just stick with me for a minute. Marshall goes down in week 3 with a hamstring issue. Cornell Armstrong comes up off the practice squad, who hadn't played in the NFL in 2 years. He just went on IR today. So now you're on your 5th option for nickel, and they are bringing in Kendall Sheffield, who was with the team throughout training camp, to serve on the practice squad as a potential elevation candidate. And you can go with some safety stuff where Minkah Fitzpatrick has that kind of versatility, but of course there's a domino effect of, if you move Minkah up, what it looks like on the back end. So
yeah,
that part of it is a big challenge, because Miami has been very porous against the run, and I think they're better when they have their base defense down with guys who are Jordan Phillips is another one of their rookie picks, and I think he's been excellent this year as far as holding the point of attack, but the pass rush profile is not there.
Yeah.
So if the Dolphins can say, hey, we've got Jordan Phillips, we feel like we can utilize him to kind of help maintain some integrity between the tackles, hypothetically, and we trust the edge guys to win their matchups with who the Chargers have, maybe you can get that extra hat back in the secondary and help with the spacing. So that's what I'm watching for when the Chargers have the ball. What about when Miami has the ball? What matchup stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Miami Dolphins and when the Chargers have the football, I think they have to look at running the ball. I mean, you gave the numbers earlier. The Miami Dolphins have given up a lot of rushing yards. They're dead last, 174.2 rushing yards allowed per game, and have allowed 6 rushing touchdowns. Unfortunately, it's not the best matchup for the Chargers because they're not down their top running back. They're down their top 2 running backs with Najee Harris going down with the Achilles injury, unfortunately. And then, of course, Omarion Hampton, their first round pick from this season, who was just really getting fired up. He was really starting to hit his stride. He goes on IR with an ankle. And so now you're expecting your third and fourth running backs, Hassan Haskins and Kaimani Vidal, to be able to provide some kind of a rushing offense, which hopefully they'll be able to do so because, as you know, Kyle, if you're able to run the ball, you're able to control the line of scrimmage and dictate what you want to do to the offense. And I think, there's some opportunities to throw the ball with Justin Herbert, but if they don't slow down this pass rush, it could get ugly. So they have to be able to establish the running game. We'll see how Greg Roman is going to be able to get creative to be able to get some opportunities running on the ground.
Yeah, and I think the same thing applies to Miami when the Dolphins have the football after they ran for 19 yards against the Panthers, which
That's
is
crazy. Is that a real stat?
They're up 17-0 and ran for 19 yards in the game. Yeah, they rushed for less yards than when they lost by 49 points to the Ravens in 2019. They rushed for less yards in this game when they led 17-0. So it puts some context into the Panthers did some creative stuff with their odd man front, where they had 3 really physical, Bobby Brown, Derek Brown, and Ashawn Robinson. They had those guys kind of play as base ends and then directly over top of the center. And then they only had one edge. They had one pass rusher and 3 defensive tackles on the field. And they put that guy kind of to the front side and said, hey, we don't think any of your guys can block this guy on the edge, and we're going to cover you up inside. And instead of trying to change what kind of run concepts they were running, the Dolphins just kept trying to run outside zone.
Ran their head against a wall, yeah.
And I think you have to come out of a game like that and look at, the Dolphins should have some good familiarity with the guys on the Chargers defensive front because Deshaun Hand played there last year and Tier Tart was there for a cup of coffee, and then they chose to go in a different direction with that pairing as well. So, those 2 guys plus Thule is, I think, a really impressive pass rush type player. You have to find some matchups to win there. How much does Odafe Owe play? I think that's a really interesting part of this after he gets traded. And, I know he bulked up and added some weight this year to play in a contract year. So the Dolphins have to find some level of winning matchups. And if it's not going to be your outside zone, you got to come into this game with a counterpunch. Like you got to have a counter or a lead or a power to say, hey, we're comfortable running this 8 times in this game. If you're going to be content to kind of plug up the point of attack the way that the Panthers did this past week. So I think that's a big matchup when the Dolphins have the ball.
Yeah, and I think when the Dolphins have the ball, another matchup that I am very much going to be worried about is the emergence of Darren Waller. Caught 8 passes on 9 targets, and all 8 of those catches went for a first down. So you talk about efficiency, that is extremely efficient. And obviously the Chargers have one of the best defensive players in the National Football League in Derwin James Jr., and that's going to be appointment television. Obviously, this is not the first time that these 2 gentlemen have faced off, as Darren Waller was with the Raiders for quite a while. So it's going to be appointment television. And also, I'd like to say that Deion Henley is probably going to be playing a part in covering him as well. Derwin James and Deion Henley together, they do an excellent job of limiting the tight ends and how they are able to have an effect on the game. But Darren Waller is a different animal. When he's healthy, that guy can really attack the seam, and he is a weapon. With obviously Tyreek Hill being done for the year, that the Miami Dolphins, I'm sure, are going to look to utilize a lot more.
Yeah, it feels like he's getting kind of incremental more opportunities each and every week. So interested to see what kind of leap we see in week 6. We will come with a couple keys to victory for each one of us right after the break. Make sure you guys stick with us as we continue getting you ready for week 6, Chargers at Dolphins. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by the fans cheering on your team. Let's be honest, getting tickets, though, it can be a little bit of a hassle. The idea of buying tickets online is one thing, but the actual application of it sometimes can be better said than done, where queues, login screens, prices jumping with hidden fees. Be very frustrating. That's why you should use Game Time to buy your tickets, the app that gives the advantage back to you, the fan. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You will always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. I love that there's all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees when you put the tickets into your cart. And there's also panoramic views that are available, so you can see what kind of sight lines the tickets you're considering have before you commit and buy those tickets for yourself to show up to the game. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Football season is in full swing. FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You can pick a bet, throw it out $5. If it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love the fact that no matter how you like to play, they've got action for you, whether that's lines, game totals, player props, live lines throughout the course of the game. You could do parlays. You name it, it makes watching football that much more exciting when you have something on the line for yourself. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, David. So 3 keys to victory for each one of us is what they prescribe to us every week to bring to the table here. So I'd love to hear from you. 3 keys to victory for the Chargers to come cross country and beat the Dolphins.
Yeah, so I think starting with the offensive line, the Chargers have to absolutely give Justin Herbert some more time. The last 3 weeks, 38 quick pressures, which leads the NFL, 63 total pressures with a 48.1% pressure rate. It's just not sustainable. You can't play offense like that, and Justin Herbert has been getting hit a bunch of times. It just has to stop. You got to be able to give your all-world quarterback just that extra second to be able to process the field and be able to hit his receivers. Number 2 is you got to find the running game. As I said before, you're going to be on your 3rd and 4th running backs, but the Panthers put up 239 yards rushing on 32 carries, and the Dolphins, I said, are towards the bottom of the league against the rush. So it's not, the greatest matchup for the Chargers, but they have to find a way to be able to provide some productivity, because that running game will also assist your pass protection as well, be able to slow that down a little bit. And then last but not least, you got to play clean football. In the last 2 games, the Chargers have been penalized 24 times for 192 yards, and they've also coughed the ball up 4 times. You just can't do that and expect to win football games. You have to play cleaner, more sound football. You cannot give the other team, the Dolphins, more opportunities and then also shoot yourself in the foot with the penalties. It has to stop if the Chargers want to have any chance to win this game on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned penalties. It's a big point of focus for this one too, where, Miami's standpoint, they go the second and third quarters. They don't possess the ball for more than 3 minutes on any of their drives. They have a chunk play, you get called for a holding penalty, and it takes it back off the board. And it might be a 10-yard penalty, but when you consider the yards that were gained on the play, it's 25 hitting yards. It's a quarter of the field. It's a huge deal. And it happens with the Dolphins way too often. And then defensively, they were super undisciplined as far as playing on the perimeter and contact outside the contact window and coverage. And it came down to the game. They had 1 minute and 10 seconds left. They chose to punt the ball back to Carolina because they had a 4th and long. And you get 2 stops on 1st and 2nd down. You get a 3rd and long, and you get called for a coverage penalty, and it gives them an automatic 1st down, and the game's over.
Yeah.
So the penalties element for Miami, they've been pretty clean, all things considered. 34 penalties through 5 games. But only 241 yards. So, if you take an average of yards, they're not getting killed from a yards perspective, but it's when those are happening that is absolutely killing this team right now. So that's one of the points of emphasis for me, keys to victory. You got to be a lot more disciplined. I think the other thing for me is finding ways to force the Chargers into the obvious passing situations that you talked about, where the pass protection issues can show up. The Dolphins defense this season as a whole, they're horrible on third down. They're giving up 50% of their third down attempts for first downs. That ranks 31st in the league. But when it's 7 yards or more to gain, that number drops to 26%. So you just can't keep living in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. And they've seen a lot of that because they've been so porous on the rundown defense in the early downs. So finding a way to get those 3rd and long and late situations where I think the best pass rusher thus far has been Jalen Phillips for Miami, and he's really starting to come on strong. He finally got the first sack since coming back this season from what was a season-ending injury last year where he suffered a partially torn ACL. He can eat in those situations, but you have to be able to earn the right to rush the passer, and they have not. And you have to possess the football offensively. You have to take the air out of this. You have to turn this into a game where both teams are lucky if they get 9 possessions, 10 possessions. This can't be a short possession, 3 minutes time of possession, kick the ball back. That's what you did for like 45 minutes against the Panthers. You ended up leading that game for 54 minutes before you surrendered the lead. And that's in large part because you couldn't run the ball and possess the ball. Yeah. So I think for Miami, without the Tyreek Hill element, taking some of the pressure off the passing game, they have their own offensive line issues with a rookie left guard and Jonas Avainaya. The entire right side of the offensive line is backup players because both James Daniels and Austin Jackson are injured reserve. All of that behooves you to run the ball and not put those guys under extra pressure. So figuring out what that looks like for Miami, that's the third key to victory for me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like very similar on both sides of the ball for both of these teams. And, you know, if they want to be able to win this game on Sunday and kind of change the course of their season or change the trajectory or, you know, can kind of add to what they want to be or where they want to go, at least for the Chargers perspective, they have to play cleaner football. They can't cough it up. They have to be able to run the ball. And that's what both of these teams are going to have to do if they want to be able to win on Sunday. You can't be able to provide extra possessions to either team because that could be the difference in a win and a loss.
So it's a lot of ball game left, but at the same time, not a lot of ball game left because this season, as we said at the top of the show, is going quickly. We are a third of the way through already. That's going to do it for us on this crossover. David Drogmeyer, Kyle Krabs, Locked On Chargers, Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you follow up for each one of us tomorrow for the Friday shows and check out all of your favorite teams here on the Locked On Network because, as we say, it is your teams every day. All of them for every sport. We have it, so we have you covered. So make sure you check out some of the other great programming that we have here on the Locked On Network. Kyle Krabs, David Drogmeyer, we appreciate you guys checking out this crossover Thursday, and we hope to see you all again soon.